you know, especially this day and age in the UFC, there's a lot of stars that aren't there anymore, especially in Brazil. You know, all the stars are older. So I cannot wrap my mind around why you're not the face of women's fighting right now, especially when they made a division for you. Let's be honest. They really made a division for you. So I think when I say this, I'm saying this, and I'm speaking for a lot of people, they want to see that belt around you. They want to see you compete. So what's going on?
You know, I want to fight soon possible after everything cleared with USADA. And in July will be 10 months. I'm not going to be inside cage. And I really ask for fight. I ask for fight in Brazil. I ask fight for Singapore. I ask for Texas. And this is not happening, you know. Then avoid make fight for me. And I never turn down fights, you know. I always people follow my career. No, I never turn down. I'm a ready. I'm training always for be a ready. I agree fight Holly Holm in Brazil in Brasilia. And then not say anything she's turned down fights because she's not accept to fight me. And I accept to fight GDR before she fight Holly Holm. But I ask for one month time for me can get in healthy and fight her. And man, I don't know what's going on. I really want to fight soon and, you know, prove all my fans I still world champ. You know, I vacated my belt, but I'm still world champ. I have 10 years undefeated. Nobody beat me yet.
Yeah.
And if I vacate the belt, if I don't have the belt on my wrist, man, I'm the world champ. Nobody can change that.
Yeah.
And
is it?
Yeah.
And for you, the reason you want a longer time is because of the weight cut. When you guys were having to fight at make 140, correct?
You know, it was it's a unique situation because last year Cris fought 3 times in 8 months,
which is a lot.
Crazy schedule,
especially making 140.
Crazy schedule. 2 of those fights are at 140. I mean, when you look at other people that are doing 3 fights in 8 months, that puts you in the Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey category of competition time.
Sure.
Now she's been 10 months without a competition. You know, what happened was at the beginning of the year, she had just fought and they were wanting to kind of like rush her back into another weight cutting cycle to get her to fight for that 145-pound belt that ended up being in February. And when she asked, you know, I need an off season. You know, you take an off season when you play for the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
You get bigger, you get stronger, you get faster, you do deadlifts.
Recover. Yeah, get better.
So that's kind of what was happening. And they basically said, look, you know, the show needs to go on. We can't wait for one fighter. We're going to go ahead and go on with this date. We've got a venue in Brooklyn that we need to fill. And, you know, you can fight the winner of this. The unfortunate part about it is, you know, then once that fight got booked, the whole USADA thing came up. But people need to realize the USADA wasn't technically a suspension. It was a 60-day investigation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you look at some guys, I mean, like John Jones, you look at the press conference this weekend in Texas, that was an amazing press conference. Everybody's really excited to see UFC 214 after that. But the reality is John Jones is doing a press conference on stage while still under a suspension.
And saying that he beat Daniel Cormier while he was high on cocaine.
No. It was 1 week in cocaine, the second weekend in that ass. Completely different. But you got a girl like Cris, she's been cleared 5 months. And we still don't have an opponent for July 29th. I mean, realistically, 5 months, and she's not at the press conference because she doesn't have an opponent.
And do you think that's the reason why you're not at the press conference? Because that press conference is kind of like, hey, this is what's going on. They do those big kind of world announcements. Is it just because you don't have an opponent? Because I can't remember the last time you were at one of those big press conferences.
Yeah, this is the big deal too, you know. I think I don't think have any promotion UFC did for me. Till I started already all the fights for UFC. I never been in Fox TV. I never have any interview. Everything I get it by myself.
Why is that? I can't understand because what's good for the UFC is good for you. Because if we can paint this picture where you're the baddest woman on the planet, which you are, it's not like hype, right? Like you're legit baddest female fighter on the planet. If you're painted as that builds the UFC's brand.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to me.
I mean,
I don't get.
Go ahead. I'm saying you can really back this up. What you're hitting on that question, it is a good question because people see Cris has only fought in the UFC 2 times, and they see that there's not a lot of girls for her to fight at 145. But if you really look into the situation, you'll see Cris has actually fought 5 fights on that UFC contract.
Meaning the Invicta fights.
But those were UFC fights. I mean, that was a UFC contract at the time. So she did 3 fights at 145 pounds. The first fight was actually the night before Ronda Rousey fought Kat Zingano. So think about that for a second. Okay, you can look at some of these girls like Ronda Rousey, and you can see how many of these Twitter followers and Instagram followers that she had when she was still fighting in Strikeforce. And then you compare those numbers to the numbers that she's had once she's gone to the UFC. Okay, you can do that same thing with Joanna Champion when she was fighting in Poland and she was in those European promotions.
Sure.
And you look at how much their following has grown.
Oh, well, there's nothing bigger than UFC media machine. That's
So
what
now
makes
you
the
compare
UFC.
Chris's 5 fights. And realistically, I mean, her social media numbers are comparable to what they were at the beginning of that 5-fight contract. They really haven't grown exponentially that large. When you start adding in some of the other ideas, like, okay, if those 3 fights were in Invicta, how much stronger is Chris's brand if they actually were in the UFC? And now, okay, we're 2 fights actually into the UFC, and people kind of want to look at that as like, okay, well, you've only had 2 fights and you're already a main event, you're already on a pay-per-view. But the reality is before Ronda Rousey even got signed, Cris was the name.
Correct.
So essentially, we fast forward 2 years, and now you're giving Cris a Jermaine Durandamy name, a Holly Holm name, a Kat Zingano name. I mean, these are all girls that were already signed to the organization when Cris made her debut 5 fights ago.
Yeah.
So why wasn't she fighting these girls 5 fights ago?
In UFC.
In the UFC.
And what do you think? Why do you think that is, Cris?
I'm now then put these girls for me can fight, and then I really want to fight who would be the container number 1 supposed to fight me. It's Megan Anderson, and I don't know what's the problem. Cannot sign her.
Because Megan wants to fight, correct? I see her on social media, and she's like, give me this fight, which I'm like, girl, you better watch it.
I know. But
She was there with Ariel, right? Cris called it. Bully beatdown.
Yeah. I think when this happened, the first fight with GDR and their Holly Holm, I was mad because Holly Holm come to 2 lost in the row.
Yeah.
And the GDR, she now fight 145 long time, 5 years.
Yeah.
How you can make fight for the belt 145 pounds if these girls now fight in this division?
Don't you think it was option B? Because option A was obviously you, which is why the division was created, but you couldn't fight. So, like, we better figure something out here. Why they can't wait, I have no idea.
I don't know.
Why
1
they couldn't
month,
just wait, I have no idea. But it seemed like it was the option B, where like, we got to do something.